Hello, everyone. This is Gloria. I hope everyone is well. Um, this is the Parenting and Indigo Live. Um, I have to say that I rescheduled it for today because my spirit team told me to do so. And I thought it was because my body was a little bit tired. I had went to take my daughter to university. It's about a 2.5 hour drive there, and then 2.5 hours back, came back the same day. But I found out that wasn't the reason. I really wasn't that tired. The reason was they wanted me to take a different direction with this live, and also that I would have a special guest, one of the galactic beings. And now I have not channeled a galactic being yet, but I know this one from their world has been around me for a couple of weeks. I enjoy their energy. So they're going to be joining us for this. Maybe not just, they may have a channel message. I'm not quite sure. I'll introduce them a little bit later. But mainly in an observatory role. They're very interested in indigos and rainbow and crystal children. There's a lot of labels. I kind of stayed away from the whole idea of that because of the labeling type thing, but they're showing me that it is really important. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. Now, let me say that the title may be a little bit misleading. Hi, Anya. It's not just for parents of indigos. This information is for anyone, aunts, uncles, grandparents, anyone that has a close relationship with an indigo child on a daily basis. So that's where the parenting aspect comes from. What they're telling me is, and I know that I'm what's called a guardian of the indigos. So it's mainly for those who have been placed with an indigo have incarnated into your family or into your family structure, and you have a role to play in their life, as well as they having a role to play in your life. So let's get started. There's a ton of information on how to identify indigo. So I'm not going to go into that. There are some things that sound really general. So I do welcome those who are indigos and know that they are indigos, those who have an indigo in their family. Just please let me know that you're here. Okay. Yeah, I was going to, Anya, I had just said there's tons of information about it, but I can just tell you loosely. Essentially, indigo children share traits. They have a strong calling to make the world a better place, for one thing. They have innate knowledge of different ways of doing things. They're natural system busters. And they have a real strong love for both nature, plants, and animals. And that may come across as, a lot of people, a lot of children, but that's essentially what they are. Now, the term indigo came about when her last name is Trapp. She was doing some experiments with auras. And she noticed that certain groups of children had a certain aura, like 80% of them had the same type of aura. And it was a deep, dark purple kind of thing. And so she noticed that they all shared the same characteristics. And so that's kind of a, quick way of talking about how the word indigo came about. But you can do some research on that, tons of information. What I want to do is first highlight there are actually 5 generations of indigos. And I want to go over those 5 generations. And you can kind of get an idea of the different types of indigos. They appear differently because they incarnated for different purposes and at different timelines. And so their purpose is a little bit different, their struggles, their challenges. When they actually come into an ascension is different. It's usually around, they said in their 20s that they actually come into their own. So, and then I'm going to tell you about my daughter, what generation she's in, and my experience with her. And I'm going to see what channeled information I can get from both the special guests, the galactic being, the archangels that surround me is Archangel Metatron. And the Shekinah is with me. She's always with me. So let me first go over the 5 ways of the 5 generations of the indigos, or 5 ways. The first wave came about, they're called the Alpha generation. They're mainly the baby boomers. They came into their own in the late 1960s. Difficult time adjusting to life here, repelled by any kind of negative emotion, anger, violence. They didn't feel at home on Earth, but they did pave a way that's easier for the second and third wave of the indigos. So the Alpha generation was the first one. Then there was the Beta generation. This is the generation that was born between 1968 and 1978. Their years of awakening came around 1996 to 2006. And they disliked authority systems, outdated processes. They were often rebellious in school and was prone to depression. Those are the type of things that the Beta generation had to overcome. The Gamma generation is the third generation of indigo children. They were born between 1978 and 1988. They're the first generation to show symptoms of autism, ADHD, and ADD during childhood. The fourth generation is called the Delta generation. They're born between 1988 and 1998. They're also known as crystals. They demonstrate the most severe ADD and ADHD symptoms of the 5 generations. But they're fearless and they're introspective and they're sensitive, and they often choose to incarnate into dysfunctional families. These Delta generation, more than any of the others, require grounding in order to stay in their physical bodies. And then the last generational wave is called the Omega generation. They're born in 1998 to 2008. And this is the generation that my daughter is in, that I'm familiar with as far as parenting. They're also known as rainbows. Many are born into families of earlier indigos, or can be a reincarnation of the earlier indigos, the alpha or the betas. They have no karmic rebalancing to do. They just, they're without fear. Their years of awakening have not happened yet. Their years of awakening, I've read, is 2026 to 2036. And that's primarily the generation that I am going to be talking about because I had experience with them. I am having experience with them. But those are the 5 generations of indigos. I can tell you, when I first got my first deck of cards, just as an aside, it's called the Archangel Oracle cards. And every time I pulled a card for myself, I got this card. And I would always pull this card. It says Indigo and Crystal Children. And it said, you have a bond with children. In particular, you can help children who are sensitive. And so I decided today, I mean, I've had this for a while, to actually read the book, what it says about this card. And it mentions Archangel Metatron. So let me get this for you real quick. Okay. Keep going. Okay, so indigo and crystal children. It says, your life purpose involves helping and teaching children. You're here to help these children retain and amplify their psychic and spiritual gifts. Educate adults about natural and chemical-free ways to feed and raise these special children. The very young crystal children and the slightly older indigo children are important to the future of this planet. You can help ensure their bright future, and I will help you. And this is working with Archangel Metatron. If you feel drawn to help children, your own or children in general, ask Metatron for an assignment that mirrors your natural talents and interests. And I can tell you that I, in addition to my daughter, who's an indigo, I am actually drawn to help indigo children. When I say children, I meant just young people. Not very young children, but I would say elementary on up. I have always been drawn to them. And my guardian angel, Savannah, is saying that I'm one of the guardians of these children that were myself, the early indigos, one of the first ones, waves. And so we look after them in a way just to make sure that they stay on track. I'm trying to actually get the right words on how I feel about that. What we do as guardians, and you may be a guardian, is that we instinctively know that we're to help these children. We're drawn to them, not just those that we're related to, but all indigos. We have a connection, a spark. It's a recognition. And so we keep a close eye on them. We are always asking about them. When we meet an indigo child, for instance, a child of a friend of mine, I know she's an indigo. I'm always asking about her, always asking about her guardian angel, especially when she, at age 15, attempted suicide, and her parents were kind of struggling with that. So, but I know when I met her, I had just heard about her through a friend, but when I met her about a year after she had attempted suicide, I felt an instant connection with her, and I know she felt it with me because when we got ready to leave, it was a baseball game, she came up to me and she hugged me, I mean, just for no reason. So those are the type of connections I know I have with these types of individuals, the indigos, the rainbows, the children. Even if I don't meet them, I'm always kind of psychically or telepathically looking to help them. And so I'm going to ask Archangel Metatron about that. He's saying that there are and have been guardians of these children, and the reason why it's important is these children are going to be guardians themselves of another generation that will, and this is why I have a special guest. I have a galactic guest from a world called Esasani. It is both hybrid And they're saying hybrid is really close to human, more so than they don't consider themselves aliens to us because they are of the hybrid human race. They are and have been preparing to initiate contact with us, but that's going to take several generations for us to be ready. The children of the Indigos, or it might even be the grandchildren of these Indigos, are going to be the ones that will be ready for the contact. And so they only want to be here to say that they are in support and they want to help the guardians of these children, the guardians that have been placed here on the earth, the guardians that are coming to help these children, to watch over them, because they're coming in and the density of the planet is such that it can be quite overwhelming, more so now than ever before. And they are saying if you feel drawn as a guardian, you are the guard, you are one of the guardians to call upon Archangel Metatron, as well as your angelic team. So I'm going to just go over a couple of things that I noticed as far as, parenting my daughter. As being an Indigo, I just kind of found out that she was an Indigo. But there's a lot of growth going on. And like any child that you are in contact with, not only are you teaching them, but you're also learning from them. At least that's the way it's supposed to be. It's not just you showing them a way. They, on a lot of cases, on a lot of levels, are showing you a better way. And I found that especially true with an Indigo. I've learned so much from my daughter as I try to give her space. And it's so important that you give Indigo children space to explore. Some of these are just general with children, but it's really critical with Indigo children. They're highly intelligent, although when you meet them, they kind of, they're not outward with it. They're more reserved with it, but as you begin to talk with them and interact with them, you'll just see how highly intelligent they are. But it's not an overt type of thing where they're just talking about, mathematics. But they keep a lot inside until they decide to open up. They feel that they are, the masters of themselves. And so they pick and choose who they want to open up to. The other thing is, they're definitely people persons. I would say, again, with the labels, you would think that they were extroverts, but they really value their solitude. They can, work a room. Well, I wouldn't say no. They're not the kind to work a room. But if you come to them, they can talk to anyone and any group and just be very comfortable. But then they can also want to stay in their room for a couple of days or, 24 hours. So they have that duality with them, very comfortable in both worlds, both solitude and, being out in the world and just talking to anyone about anything. The other thing I'd have to say is they're very physical. They tend to really need touch, hugs, if it's your child, kisses, that type of thing. But the physical touch even holding hands, they tend to really need that physical connection. And that's what I've found so far. Let's see if anybody has. Okay. Hey, Ashley. Yeah, a lot of a special connection to sensitive and challenging children. Yeah, it does feel challenging at first. I don't think I probably would use that word now to describe her. I think when she was younger, I felt challenging, but it was only because I was trying to mold her into, what is the status quo, and they're not having it. They're not having, being molded into that. And once you let go, it's just a whole different world that opens up, not only for them, but for you as well. They're here to break that status quo, to break those molds. And I'm going to tell you, it is going to be challenging. I was reading too how a generation of them, we put them on a Ritalin because we didn't understand, and so we drug them, and instead of trying to, understand what they're here for. Some of these children are also autistic, and we are starting to understand them now, but before that was kind of a stigma. But yeah, I don't see her as challenging, and it was challenging when I resisted, when I was, like I said, when I tried to steer her into what I thought, would be best for her, because this is the way things are. And she was definitely wanting to go her own way. And when I let go, I don't know, it's just things just blossomed. Not only she was happier, I was happier, the air around us was happier. So those children, like any children, but in particular, you have to try to find out. And what happened, what helped me is I asked who her guardian angel was. And so I have been talking with her guardian angel whenever I felt that, maybe I needed to help her in a different way. So that helps me too. Yeah. It is more up to us adults to follow their lead. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. Are any of you that are any of you Indigo, any of the generations here that's listening? Because I would love to hear, this is just my perspective as being a parent of an Indigo, and I'm like one of the first wave Indigos. But just your experience in your family, your immediate family group is what I'm interested in. I'm so happy to hear. Yeah. Okay. So the other thing, physical touch. They really crave that. And and that's one of the things that helped me. I am not a hugger, but I am now because of my daughter. It's just that, and then I would come home from work and I would think, why are you hugging me? I just walked in the door. And once I embraced that, I really came to really look forward to it. And I was able to incorporate that, modify it, in a way that's comfortable for me. But I become more of a connector now, with COVID. I still hug my daughter, but it's one of those things that I found with Indigos is they're very physical, touchy, feely kind of people. The other thing is they're sensitive to the elements. I remember when she was maybe 5, and even now, she's very, very sensitive to loud noises, things that, just loud noises and temperature extremes, very sensitive to those type of things, bright lights. I know an indigo adult who is just very sensitive to bright lights. He cannot sleep with a light on, have a night light, has to be pitch dark. But bright light, getting back to my daughter, loud loud noises. I know if you would drop something suddenly, she would, just jump and then she'll start crying. This was when she was younger. Now at almost 20, she'll be 20 on Halloween. She still has the sensitivities, but I can see where she's, kind of checks herself. She knows it's okay, but I can still tell that it affects her. Loud noises do still affect her. Caring for humanity and animals. I find that they are really extremely connected to nature. My daughter wants to be a veterinarian. She's always liked all type of animals, reptiles. Other than spiders, that's the only thing that she doesn't, gravitate to. She likes all type of animals and wants to work with them. They are really interested in humanity. And what I mean by that is they are always concerned about, especially their friends. Friends are very, very important to them. They're very loyal to what their friends are going through. I noticed when I took her to university on Saturday, her friend's mom was sitting in the car, and before she got in the car with me, she went over to her and asked if she was okay, and you could tell that she really appreciates her concern, that they really, really appreciate somebody caring to, especially a young person, are you okay? That type of thing. So they're really, really, and I get that feedback from other adults that she's very caring, she's very nurturing. So they're really connected to humanity. They're here to usher in a whole different world than what we know now. And they just have a lot for us to learn from. And so I'm listening to, and what I'm getting from the Galactic, they're not giving me a name. They communicate telepathically, and so they don't have names. They identify each other by their frequencies, I'm told. And so they're saying that this generation that will be in contact with them, well, they're saying even some of the generations now, the fourth and fifth generations, they have been, seeing UFOs and other kind of sightings, just a little bit, just to kind of dip their toe into the water, as it were, to see whether we humans here on the earth are ready for it. But they're very much working with these generations to help usher in contact with humans on earth. And let me know if this is all over the place, because I feel like the information is coming from different directions, but it all kind of makes sense. We do have groups of children, not too many since this last Omega generation, and I'm told they have not yet reached their year of awakening. They're still, some of them finding things challenging, working their way through. But Archangel Metatron is saying, those of you who are and find yourself as guardians of these children, give them space, give them a safe space to train and learn and make mistakes, follow a different path than what you consider to be safe. A lot of them are not that interested in jobs for the money. They want fulfillment. Allow them to, without worry that they're going to somehow be homeless or not fulfill what your wishes are for them. You know how that is. If you rather tell your friends, oh, my child is a doctor or a lawyer, and they want to be a gardener, open up a cake shop. Allow them to do that. Many that are guardians now are themselves awakening again to their role in the lives, to shed any kind of resistance to them being different. And in return, they are getting greater rewards. And I can really attest to that. I enjoy being with my daughter. I enjoy being around her. She's so funny. And she doesn't shy away from any kind of questions I have. They do tend to, it feels like you're talking to an old soul. I don't care how old they may be. They may be 13. And at 13, you may feel like you're talking to like a 43-year-old. So yeah. You're in the second wave, and I didn't feel understood, but we had some different difficulties in my family, so it was hard to say what influenced what. Yeah, some of these kind of overlap. So yeah, and that's probably why they were saying that the first or second waves are oftentimes the guardians of the later waves, like the fifth generation of Indigos. They are incarnated into families where either they reincarnated as one of the first and second wave, or they're in a family group where there was a first or second wave of Indigo. So yeah, let me see what else do I have. That's all I have on there. I also want to ask Archangel Metatron. He's just saying to call on your spiritual team. Those he's speaking directly again to what he's calling the guardians of these children, and by children we're talking about all the way up to adulthood. He's calling it the Indigos. He just said just call them Indigos. Okay. Indigos, rainbows, crystals. You know who you are because you're constantly being drawn to those both in your family and outside your family that are in the Indigos that are in family units that have not awakened. And the Indigos will recognize you. The Indigos, they will be drawn to you. So not only are you drawn to them, they're drawn to you. There's a type of, I'm going to tell you, it feels a little very protective, making sure that they're fed information, spiritual downloads that you have. I know I'm always feeding that to them, and they're always receptive. My daughter, even with my mediumship and my spiritual practice, she's always interested in what I'm doing as far as going live, reading cards. We would do the telepathy game with the Zener cards to practice telepathy. So they know They're just not as outwardly open. At this point, that fifth generation, they have not come into their awakening yet. But that's going to be coming in the next 6 to 16 years, 6 to 15 years. It said 2026 to 2036. They'll be coming into their awakening. So, and that's all I have on this one. With my cousin who was extroverted, but same time people person. He loved nature a lot and could disappear for all day in the woods fishing. Yep. The second wave, Christine. Okay. Okay, very sensitive. Also had addictions and depression. Yeah, that's the other thing too. And my daughter went through that too. She went through it briefly, and that's the other thing. The reason why Archangel Metatron is saying that these guardians are, as guardians, we give them space to find their way on this very dense frequency planet, and so they may fall into some things temporarily, addictions and depressions. Okay, and some of them have decided to check out. They are some are prone to suicide, and not very many. I'm told that the angels now are helping those that are wanting to check out. They are dispatching more help to these so that they can assimilate. So not as many are doing that. And in rare cases, they have agreed to do walk-ins. If it is too extreme, then they would allow them to come back and to rest, and they would allow a walk-in because their mission is so important. They want it to be carried out, but if they feel that they cannot at this time, then and like they say, on rare occasions, they will accommodate them and allow them to rest. Okay, so that's all I'm getting on indigos. And, this really wasn't about indigos. It was more about those, the caregivers, the caretakers that are here on Earth for the indigos. And just to recognize that your calling, your mission, your position is to allow them to fly. When they're very young and they haven't come into their awakening fully yet, that is the time that you can label it as challenging or difficult, but that's also a time of growth for you. Yeah. So Archangel Metatron is saying to call on him. He would definitely help in any of this, any questions that you have. But they just thought this was a very important topic. So important that a galactic being is here and is very much interested in these children, and that we guard them and, help them before their awakening and during their awakening and after. That more guardians are going to awaken for these children. The children themselves are not going to increase right away. There may be a little lag because the next wave is going to be so very different, so very advanced. And these children that we are guardians for will be guardians for them. Okay? All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Please listen to your comments. It's very interesting to me. I didn't think it was going to go in that direction, but I always love when I listen to Spirit and let Spirit direct whatever it is I'm supposed to do. So again, leave your comments and I will talk with you soon.